Switched on IT is proudly brought to you by Computer Troubleshooters Toowoomba West and Oz Hosting, Cloud Made Easy.
Welcome to Switched on IT. I'm Barry. This is the show where we talk about everything IT. We have Doug and Ray with us again today, our hosts from Sydney and Washington DC. They'll be with us in a moment. Today, in the midst of the coronavirus, where everybody's lives have been completely turned upside down, and this virus is touching many of us in many different ways, we are having to find new ways of doing things. Numbers of businesses now are looking at working either remotely or from home, and with lots of us now confined to our homes, and the prediction is that that's not going to get any better. It's actually going to become stricter and more severe as the pandemic takes hold. There are things that are pretty important about working from home that we need to understand, because working from home has lots of constraints on it and lots of things that make it very different from working from an office or wherever it is that you would normally work. So today, Doug and Ray are going to take us through some of the steps that we need to understand to make working from home effective and not just a away from the office holiday. Doug and Ray, welcome to both of you.
Good morning, Barry.
Hi there.
Hi. Now, Ray, there are several different parts of this question that need to be dealt with, and I think you're going to deal first of all with environment. Am I correct?
Mindset. We're going to talk about mindset as it relates to the environment. Absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to talk about mindset. So you're going to discuss with us where people's mindset needs to be in order to make working from home successful and not just another nightmare on the list of nightmares that we are currently dealing with.
Yes. This is a time to pause and plan, not to panic. So. Cool.
Okay, well, take it away for us.
Thanks, Barry. I think we've got a number of different things we need to address today, Ray, and certainly mindset is going to be one of them. How we make sure that we're going to be, I guess, productive and get as much as we can out of our day. Certainly at Oz Hosting, we've seen lots and lots of our customers, our clients, come back to us in the last 6 or 8 weeks, talking about all the different things that they're confronting, because they're finding that yes, they're telling their staff to work from home, where that is a viable option that they've got, and then when they do that, all of a sudden they're bumping into a whole bunch of different problems where productivity and effectiveness is being impaired, because they just don't have a holistic view of how working from home can change things. You know, it's not simply a matter of just picking up your laptop and going home with it and then putting it on the kitchen bench in the morning and starting work. I think most business owners need to really think through how their staff are going to tackle working remotely, specifically from a home environment. It's not as straightforward as it seems. We're seeing people have issues with network, with technology, with interruptions, with relationships. There's all of that to consider, and there's also just the whole ability of people to treat being in their home, how they function, trying to make sure that's as being at work. So I guess that gets us back to the discussion we had initially, or the points that were made initially about mindset. So Ray, what do you do to make sure you're from home, how do you make sure that you're getting the best out of Ray, and what are you guiding or counselling your own staff that are working remotely to do to ensure that their mindset and their approach is as productive as it can be?
Well, when it comes to mindset, I think the word mindset kind of conjures certain or different things for different people. And so, what I mean by mindset is that just because you are working from home, you are not necessarily to think about it from a home perspective. You need to think about it from different locations around your home that are different environments for you to be able to contextualize work. And so it's important to think about it the way in which you say, for example, you have a conference room at the office. Potentially, you have maybe a front desk area where you might have some conversation with guests as they arrive at your office. You might have a desk at home. Hopefully, you have some place at home where you can do the normal driving work of your day. Maybe you have a home office, that kind of thing, where you can, set up your work for the day and work primarily. But think about it from the perspective that mindset is about the type of work you're going to approach in context. And so you need to have a place where you do meetings and a place where you do work, the deep work, the focused action work that you need to do throughout the day, and start to think about that more so than thinking about working from home as this holistic location. Mindset is really important so that you can understand that this is not a game. You're doing this under somewhat duress. You didn't choose to be here necessarily working from home, and those categories, those decisions need to be made through the lens of, as an employer, how do I make sure that my team and staff is in the right mental space that if they're going to continue working from home, they haven't been furloughed or otherwise told not to work from home, you are in a position to empower them to make sure they know how to contextualize the work they're doing at home and how many hours you're going to be working from home, how you're going to position yourself potentially within the company for new roles or differing roles when you are in this kind of disconnected space. Mindset is about approaching the work with a different lens. And I think a lot of times what we're trying to do is approach the work with the same lens as going to the office or going to work in some other way. And that's just not the case. This is a different environment, and it requires a different set of skills, strategies, and tools, which is what we're really going to talk about. But mindset is getting over this notion that you're just going to plunk down at the dining room table and work just like you go to the office. There is a whole set of parameters here of getting yourself mentally prepared for the fact that this is a difficult situation, and you need to be and build resistance and resilience to the things that could be negative and or kind of weigh on you as we go through all of this, especially considering the fact that, at least right now as of recording, we're dealing with a global pandemic, and there's mental health and emotional health practices that we all have to take into account so that we're capable of being able to weather this unfortunate circumstance. So that's what I mean by mindset. Doug, what are things that you've done as you have made your way through this period of working from home to help you kind of do the self-care and to get yourself kind of geared up for the daily grind?
So Ray, one of the ways that I manage the mindset is by being having quite set routines to start the day. So early in the morning we're having our cup of tea, breakfast, that sort of thing. I'll jump on a push bike and take the dog down to the beach. She has a swim down there, and that's sort of quite relaxing for me. And then when I come home after that, I've already had breakfast. It's basically shower, work clothes, and then into the office and start the day. And that's going to start around 8 a.m. And I do that every morning. And typically, I probably won't come out of the office for a couple of hours. In the morning, around sort of 10:30, it might be time for a cup of coffee or something like that. And my wife also works from home, and we've got an office in the house here. She's got her own sort of workstation, desk, and setup, and we find that works, reasonably well. There are the usual number of distractions. I think, like people that are working remotely from their home these days. I'm just in awe at how many tradesmen come into the street here and are doing work on houses around me with whippersnippers and hedge trimmers and lawnmowers and all that sort of thing. You find you feel you live in a really peaceful, quiet street because you experience it on a Saturday and Sunday, and then during the week it can be quite noisy. But aside from that, I think managing that routine really works for me. How do you tackle it?
Cover a number of different things that are really important for people to understand, which is that your days are built on routine, and you are the sum total of your life are your routines. Most people talk about habits indiscriminately in terms of making positive effect change on your life. But really, if you can actually master your routines, you will be better off far greater than you would on mastering any one single individual habit. And so lean on those routines. Make sure that you're getting up and getting ready for work at the same times of the day, and you're presenting yourself as you would at work. You wouldn't show up to work in a t-shirt and underwear. You'd show up with some proper clothes on, and for the type of work that you're doing. And so you want to make sure that I always think about it, if I was going to be on camera with my employer or my employees throughout the day, how would I look? And just like I would look exactly the way I would if I showed up to the office. So, dressing the part, making sure that you are keeping to the routines you had in place. And this actually helps to buffer, again, going back to mindset, this buffers us from some of the fatigue that happens from working from home, because you're playing a role, you're performing. And performance, right, whether it's work performance or just a play in which a stage play, which you're going on stage and getting in front of people, they're not all that different. And a lot of people tend to think about it from the perspective that they are these fully independent things. But work performance should be done in a way that you're going on stage, you're getting prepared, you go on stage, you do what you have to do, and then you get off stage, and then you rest, relax, and get prepared for your next performance. And if you can get your head into that level of mindset, you can actually be much more productive throughout your work from home days while this pandemic persists.
Yeah, good point.
Ray, would you suggest then that somebody who works in a business where they would normally wear a uniform of some kind should actually put their uniform on while they're working from home?
I believe yes. If that's what you would normally wear, if you would normally have a polo with a logo on it, and you would show up in uniform for it, absolutely. This doesn't do just one level of behavior intervention. It's actually multiple layers of it, because one, it's a trigger for you that you're at work and you should be performing, but the other is that subtle clue to everybody else in your home environment. Many of you who are working from home right now have potentially a spouse and children at home, and others who are in your home. You might have other family members who might be living with you. You need to present to them that you're at work, and it's a nice subtle cue to everybody that, hey, by the way, I'm at work. And if I'm hanging around and loafing around at home in a t-shirt and jeans, that doesn't send the right message to everybody around me that, hey, I'm at work, don't bother me right now. If it's important, obviously interrupt me, but don't interrupt me if I'm in my uniform and I'm at work. And that's just another one of those subtle cues that puts you into that mindset, but it also tells the people around you that you're working.
Yeah. And Ray, that's a good sort of mindset sort of approach. What other strategies do you feel are useful in helping people be productive when they're working from home?
Yeah, so the next step beyond mindset, whether as a small business owner or as an employee, is to start to think about the strategies necessary for a productive work environment when you are in a remote collaboration perspective. So as a business owner, you should start thinking about strategies as remote policies. How should we deal with these things that we normally take for granted? Normally, if Doug and I worked in the same office, I could walk down the hall, and if Doug is in his office, I could see that. If Doug is not in his office, I can't see that. I can see that also, and then I can decide to come back to his office later. When you work remotely, Doug is never in your office. Doug is never in sight. So how is the communication strategy going to be dealt with in a remote communications environment? In my own office, we use internal chat functions, and we use the status to tell people whether or not we're available to talk at any given time. And we have parameters for being able to have that level of communication so that people have time to talk, people can schedule times to talk, but also the general chit chat, things that people sometimes call water cooler discussion, other kinds of casual conversation. It's actually really important for people to be able to step away from work to then be able to re-engage in new work. This transition time between different projects throughout the day is actually really important for people to stay productive. And so giving people that level of team cohesion communications is also important. So you might have a Slack channel dedicated to water cooler chat or just general conversation, but you would have to take it a little further step beyond that, because people are not used to this, right? If all of us were used to working from home or working remotely, we would naturally develop our own organic culture for being able to deal with how to communicate about those casual things easily. In a concentrated period like this, where we have work from home imposed upon us like this, we need to decide, okay, you know what? 2:00 on Thursdays, we're going to have a team huddle, but it's going to be about nothing but casual conversation. We're just going to, it's kind of like Festivus in the Seinfeld series, airing of the grievances. Everybody can just come and, shoot the breeze. They could talk about whatever they'd like and have a conversation that's a little bit unbridled. That is the level of camaraderie and team development that's necessary in a work from home environment when people aren't used to not having that outlet to be able to communicate with each other. And it's not so you can create an environment where people are going to be unprofessional and start complaining about company this and that. It's really an opportunity for people to engage with each other, hopefully through some type of maybe video conferencing tool where everybody can see each other and catch up and say, hey, how are your kids? I know that your family member may have been ill recently. All of us eventually will have been touched by someone who has had COVID-19 and suffered through it and potentially also unfortunately passed. And so we all need to bear that in mind, that we have to have that level of camaraderie built up, that level of emotional bank account deposits put into everybody in our organization, because it's going to be tough. It's going to be difficult on all of us. I already hear a lot of people who have not been working remotely for a long time or working from home for a long time who are already crumbling under the stress of it all. It is incredibly stressful if you don't have all of these pieces put into place. So decide on how you're going to communicate. You can't all of a sudden decide of your team that they should call you every hour and tell you what they're doing. That would be unproductive for them and unproductive for you potentially. But if you have team members who are used to being in an open office plan, for example, and so had greater group accountability to getting things done, they couldn't just sit there and twiddle their thumbs or look at Facebook all day. Now that they don't have eyes on them, their productivity may drop dramatically because they don't have that level of peer accountability. How do you create that? That needs to be strategically done. That doesn't need to be just one tactic where you go to that one individual and say, you're doing wrong, fix it. You need to have an entire approach for the whole company to be able to support all of you through that change. And it's not cookie cutter. It's not like I can tell you do these 5 things and you're going to be better off. Every organization is different, and you need to think about each business process as its own strategy and implementing those policies that are going to be appropriate for this time for the people that are working for you.
Yeah, well, we can certainly get some benefit from pulling those strategies, together and making sure that we've got, the right management of different outcomes, because it's certainly different when we're in a home environment. This is pixelating, I can see that.
Yeah, we probably should at this point simply point out to the viewing public that we are also part of this COVID-19 mix, And some of the things that you are seeing, like the pixelation of Doug's picture here, is not because we are doing anything differently, but because there are so many people now working from home that the stress on the NBN is absolutely huge. And because the stress on the NBN is so huge, part of what's happening is that you're seeing some degradation in the picture that we're getting from from Doug, because we're all on this system together. So that's just a word of explanation for today's show. We're suffering out of this as well, so please just be patient with us and understand that this is not something that we have too much control over.
Yeah, and to Barry's point, this takes us really well into the next kind of strategy, which is choosing the right technology and tools for your working from home environment. And so ISPs, once they are under incredible stress, they're going to throttle things like video first, which is why YouTube and other platforms, Netflix and otherwise Hulu, have all said that they're going to degrade the quality of video that's streaming to individuals so that they can have less bandwidth taxing the overall telecommunications networks. Now, we have a lot of bandwidth capability in terms of undersea cables that are already there, but they're not activated. So transiting that data requires them to activate those pieces on one level for the entire internet infrastructure. But then we have to actually bring that internet from major hubs to people's homes, and that's where really the problem exists, which is that there just is not enough infrastructure for that. And just so people have an understanding, when you have a commercial internet connection put in, that is a very different type of connection that's going to be implemented versus residential. Most residential has a download and an upload speed that is asymmetric, meaning that the download speed is going to be much faster than the upload speed, because it's not presuming that we're doing this kind of symmetric video all the time or in high fidelity. And so that's the experience we're having right now, where the bandwidth up, the amount of video that needs to be uploaded, is all getting clogged. It's like a traffic jam. It's all getting clogged in those pipelines, and ISPs are therefore throttling it. But to the point of technology, you have to choose good technology in order to be able to connect with your teams. I happen to be in an almost exclusive G Suite environment. All of my team uses Google products as a part of its platform. I know that Doug uses Microsoft 365 and is in that platform with regard to his team, and both have the capabilities of having infrastructure for all the types of ways in which you would want to communicate with your team: email, calendar, document sharing, the ability to have collaborative chat inside of the enterprise space, video meeting technology, and otherwise. And the goal for you is to be able to choose the right technologies needed for being able to work together. So, for example, we use a meeting software called Zoom, and it's become very popular of late with a lot of folks. But we've been using it for the last year or two, and we appreciate it because it's very easy for us to be able to come on screen. There's actually a whiteboarding functionality built into Zoom, so we can actually whiteboard together ideas. We can also train within that space. So that's a tool that works really well for us, even though we're within G Suite. And Google Meet, which is the tool that's built inside of G Suite, is competent, and it's very good for just general one-to-one meetings, for training purposes, and the ability to record meetings and so on and so forth. It's easier inside of Zoom, so we choose to do that. So choosing the right technology, go down the list of things that you need to do on a regular basis with your staff and with your clients and vendors, and decide what technology do we need to fit that category? And while Barry always makes this this plea at the end of the videos, if you have any questions as to what type of technology you're really needing, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to make recommendations for you so that you can understand what technology is needed. Doug, your thoughts in terms of the best way to make those decisions to choose the right technology for a work from home environment?
Look, the things that we're seeing is people getting to their home and then trying to sort of communicate, work on projects, collaborate, share files, and that's when they're bumping into some limitations. It can be as simple as they get back to their home office environment, and they find that the office suite licenses, their Outlook or those tools, Excel and so on. They've got a workstation back at the office which has got a license. They then get home and they're finding that they're using a personal laptop or something like that to uneven have the correct licenses. So we're seeing people are upgrading all their staff to make sure that they've got all the latest versions of all the different software applications that they need to get their work done. That's often quite a shock to them, and it's not cheap. But they're having to do that, and then that's a good thing, because if they're going to be reliant on that for their productivity for the next few months at least, and that's certainly what it looks like, then that's going to be very helpful to them. And then we're also observing the issues that people are having with bandwidth and trying to use their existing VoIP phone service, which is often fantastic in the office, but not so great in the home situation. So they're the sorts of things that we're seeing. But I think I'll hand it back to you, because I know this is pixelating.
Yeah, I think it's really important to take into account the licenses of software and where they actually operate. I've been actually guiding a lot of folks on using remote desktop so that the office computer stays on and active, and you basically use a remote desktop client to be able to access the technology on those computers, so that you're really seeing the computer at your office. You're seeing a visualization of the screen of your office computer because you're working directly onto it, and that means you don't have to install all that software locally onto potentially a personal laptop or a personal computer that could be highly susceptible to other kinds of malware and other things that are resident on home computers. You just don't have the level of cybersecurity that an enterprise system would have. So just keeping those things in mind, and not choosing, off-the-shelf consumer grade, remote desktop software. You should be using high-grade enterprise level, desktop software for this stuff. So remote desktop software. And there's also the issue of good training, which brings us to kind of the last component, which is skills. Once you understand the technology and the tools that you'll be using, you have to spend some time teaching these skills and to your employees and to the people around you. Many times your clients, you yourself, need some upgrading in terms of skills to be able to use these things. You weren't born to know how to use Zoom. You weren't born to know how to use Microsoft Teams, or to even to use email, right? You once upon a time used email in a way that was easy and casual at the office, but now that you're at home and you're maybe sending a lot of email back and forth, not every email should be an email. Some emails belong as phone calls, some belong as video meetings, and some belong in the trash. They should not be sent. And now we're seeing that. We're seeing more and more people coming to grips with the fact that, they thought, oh, well, working from home just means sending more email, as opposed to other kinds of communique. And the reality is that you need to now start to think, how do I train people to effectively deal with these things? The good part is that this is an investment in the future of your business and in the future of your own employees' careers. If you can teach them these skills now, they're going to be that much more productive when they get back to the office. So this is a good, opportunity. This is a good investment. So you have to sit back and think, okay, you know what, Bill over in accounting isn't that great at communicating in writing? we need to level up his skills in that regard, and that's going to make him a better accountant, billing person, invoicing. Maybe he's going to get better rate of response in terms of delinquent invoices. This is the kind of stuff that you need to start thinking about as you make your way into choosing good technology and then implementing that technology with good skills training. So it's important to think about all of these things as you go through. If you're implementing new technology, that requires training. Every time you implement a new piece of technology, you just don't throw it into the hands of your employees and say swim, especially not in an environment where they are stressed out. This is an anxiety-producing event. It's a global pandemic. It's not like they chose to work from home 1 day a week and they get the opportunity to test the waters and to iterate on their skills until they're good at it. They're being thrust into this situation as you are, and they should be given due consideration in terms of being able to grow those skills over time so that they can be most efficient for you, and they don't burn out and leave you when all is said and done. Because yes, we're going to go into hopefully a short recession. I'm hoping it's a short recession. I don't know. But even after the recession, if they are burned out and they are valuable employees, if you made them burned out because of this, they're going to leave you. They're going to go find somebody else who values them and is not going to put them through that kind of stress in the future, because recessions come and go, pandemics come and go, but good employers are, diamonds in the rough. So be a great employer so that those employees stay with you beyond this and the next disaster and the next, issue that comes up in the business. You want employees that are both resilient, but also understand that you are taking care of them, and this is the time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
so where are we going from here?
To go on at the moment because I'm just worried about my level of sort of pixelation and the quality of the link that I'm sort of running through. So
No,
Barry,
you're all right at the moment.
It's all good at the moment? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm thinking that is pretty much a wrap anyway. I guess one thing that and I know we'll edit some of these things out. Ray, we've sort of touched here and there on the security aspects, and certainly that is going to be one of the key things when people are using, maybe not the most secure networks and maybe not the most secure devices. Certainly, one of the things that we're advising our customers to do is to make sure that they continue to use tools such as password management tools. That they use multi-factor authentication on all of the software applications that people are remote, using remotely and logging in from remote places. And they make sure that they have the backup regimens, and maybe that might need to extend to backing up the new devices that people are starting to use when they're working from home. The need for backup, the need for that level of resilience, it certainly doesn't go away just because you're working from home. So I think there's a number of strategies our small business customers and viewers can do as far as security is concerned. Ray, have you got any other comments about just the security and backup angle?
No, I think you covered it. I think you need to make sure that people are mindful of the fact that they need to be using the latest updated software, because those are going to be the least riddled with malware. You're going to need good cybersecurity practices. There are a lot of coronavirus phishing attacks going on right now. People sending emails because we're all anxious and we want to hear about the latest thing that's happening with regard to the COVID-19 pandemic. We see an email and we open it. And that could be potentially dangerous to not only our home network, but now to our company, because it extends beyond the normal borders. We're no longer within the perimeter of our enterprise environment where we can control things. They're now beyond that firewall space. So it's really imperative. Again, I think it's so imperative to say this needs to be our cybersecurity strategy for work from home environment. And this is going to serve you now and in the future. So you can use this again by developing the policies and strategies for your team to use, and say, okay, when you work from home, we're going to use effective, whether it's VPN technologies to be able to VPN into the office, effective remote desktop tools, using VM, whatever it is that you're going to be doing. And we're going to abide by these strict cybersecurity policies. For example, when you work remotely, say from a cafe, you would have a set of practices that any employees working when they're working remotely, well, maybe they should extend those policies to the home, right? Act like they are in a hostile environment, and therefore operating from that technological perspective means that they're going to be safest in transiting business data, which includes both IP as well as client data and personal and private information on behalf of the company. So you want to make sure that they are aware of that your home is not, you may feel safe in your home, but from a hacker's perspective, it's a veritable holiday. It's an opportunity to go ahead and attack and get access to a CEO's information by infiltrating a lower level employee in the hierarchy. So they need to kind of operate from that perspective that their work from home environment really is just like working at a cafe, where anyone can sniff that network, anyone can infiltrate that network with a little bit of penetration testing and with a little bit of effort. And so I think we should be probably operating from that perspective. I work with my staff to make sure that everybody is setting up their work home environments as protected as they would in our office, but that's because we're going to an all remote company. That's going to be very different from everyone else because it's just not worth it financially to beef up the security of every employee that you have working for you potentially. So you need to take some hard look at the profit margins associated with that and implementing cybersecurity strategies that are going to be practical for the business.
A question to both Doug and Ray. What are the lessons going forward out of this, and looking at when we come to the other side of this, what are the lessons that businesses and governments should be taking from this experience that we've all been thrown into head first?
I'd say one of the obvious lessons is that our ISP infrastructure, the network infrastructure, is a key national asset that underpins our productivity and our effectiveness as a nation. I think this has definitely demonstrated to most Australians that our government has failed us on this one. There are certainly a lot of people from a technology and from the corporate sector saying we need to have a really proper, high-quality broadband network, which is ubiquitous, which gets to every conceivable business and dwelling in the nation within reason, and it will underpin our productivity, and we're now seeing why that is the case.
Yeah, and a network that's not just fit for purpose, but is actually going to deliver us the kind of service that we need.
Correct.
Right?
On my side, I think that it's really imperative that we hearken back to the last 10 years of my life, speaking to small businesses of every size and shape, and telling them that they need a website. It is remarkable how many businesses today, we've threshold over the halfway point, and more businesses today have websites than not. That's a really great point. But that is just because most businesses have a website means that there's a vast majority of you out there who do not yet understand the value of having a website. And so often than not, I see these businesses who write to me every day and say, how do I communicate to my customers that we're still open for business, that we can take payment, that we can thrive in this, or at least survive during this disaster? And I say, well, why don't you post it to your website? And then there's this pause on the line. because the hopefully the shame and the guilt washes over them at that moment of ignoring my pleas for them to have a website. It can just be a single page, for all that matters to me, just so that your clients know how to find out information from you, so that you're able to communicate to them this basic types of information, plus letting them give you money. There's nothing more important right now during a disaster than for cash flow to be continuous, at least in some way, shape, or form. And so many businesses I'm seeing out there, the ones who are going to fail during this pandemic, are the ones who don't take payment online. They don't know how to get something as simple as an invoice paid over the internet, and are having trouble communicating with their clients in some way, shape, or form. They are not collecting email addresses from their clients. They're not communicating digitally with their clients. And so they have this all offline environment, which ultimately leads to lack of continuity of services, lack of continuity of communication strategy. And so just the number one thing I can say to everyone is, after this is all done, I'm hoping that more people understand the importance of websites, collecting emails from their clients, not just for marketing purposes, but for these kinds of disasters. And also making sure that you understand e-commerce doesn't have to mean having an online store. It means being able to take payments online when you're not able to get a check handed to you from a client, and they potentially can't, they're going to mail you a check potentially, but you're not there to receive the check, or the postal services are, potentially doing something different. This could be far worse. We could have a degradation of all kinds of other services if this was a worse virus, or some other, germ that's out there. So I just feel like this is kind of like, I don't know how it all end at the end in terms of mortality rate and so on and so forth. But this was a test, and if you survive this test, if your business survives this test, then every business starting after this will hopefully have learned the importance of strong digital strategy across the board: marketing, productivity, cybersecurity, and otherwise in terms of operations.
Yeah, it's a bit of a wake-up call for businesses, I think, and like you, Ray, I have been pleading with businesses for a long time to make sure they are online. We have gone through the space here in Australia, and I'm presuming in the US as well, where businesses have resisted having an online store or a payment system because they've been saying, we wouldn't want to do that because we want people to come into our store. Well, now they can't, and if lots of those businesses had been ready simply because they should have been ready anyway, maybe the impact of this virus would not have been so profound. Doug, I don't know whether you saw on the news last night, but I was watching a news article last night where they were talking about the number of businesses, the amount of online shopping that is now taking a really solid hold now that people are unable to go shopping.
Yeah, no, I'm well aware of that, and I can certainly see that in our own household, where any minute now, I'm sure the dog will bark because there will be a delivery at the door.
Right.
Yeah. One final thing I do want to talk about is the fact that once we're done with this working from home, strategy that businesses are facing right now, it will have been an opportunity to survive this circumstance. But in the future, many of the people who work from home will start to think, you know what, I could do this all the time. And there will be a really interesting discussion that will have to be had globally about all of us being global citizens and working for global companies that have a global reach in that sense. So, there may come a time when many of the businesses that are watching this, many of the business owners that are watching this, start to think, well, maybe even if I have a local business, my team doesn't need to be coming to the office in order to be able to get the work done. And then, going through the process of figuring out how that really happens. I don't know if I have explained this on the show before, but I had a fire at my office building a year or two ago. And at that point, we decided to become a remote company, to not, in essence, resume having the people come back into one environment all the time. And so we have been using a work from home plus remote work strategy where we had a co-working space where team members can meet if they need to. Most are local in the Washington, D.C. area, but I'm not. I'm frequently on the road. So I always tell people I'm the absent CEO because I'm always on the road. People rarely see me in the office, and when they do see me, they frankly don't know who I am. No, I'm joking. But the goal is to be able to decide what a modern company looks like and how to effectively manage that company. And there are potential cost savings there, not always, but there are potential cost savings there, as well as making people have a more flexible working environment, work life, so that they can have greater, life work satisfaction or work life satisfaction. And so I think on the other side of this, to your question, I think there's going to be an opportunity for people to start thinking about whether or not always showing up at the office is right for everyone, because it may not be.
Yeah, and in terms of mindset and mental health, there's probably going to be, at the end of this, a shock for workers back into companies that are going to say, we don't want to, now that this is over, we want you all in the office every day. That's probably going to be as big a mindset shift again for workers as working remotely is.
Absolutely. I mean, for some, it will be a welcome relief. I mean, you'll be able to get away from your spouse and kids. But I think for the vast majority of us all, it will be a relief just to have some sense of going back to what is normalcy. And so I think that will be a bigger relief than it will be a shock to go back to the office. And I think that, again, it's just going to have to be this reconciliation that we all do mentally, emotionally, but also operationally as business owners to figure out what the right working modality is for our teams. Where do our teams thrive? Where do we do our best work? And if there are people who can perform in any environment, why force them into an environment that isn't the most productive for them and or for others. So this is of course an ongoing issue with basically all of the late 90s and early 2000s with the concept of an open office plan, which really has shown to not be as productive an environment. If people can now work from home in the right environment, they can be more productive because if their spouse is off at work and their kids are off at school, then they have a quiet space to be able to do the type of work and ideation and kind of deep work, as they say, for them to be able to get productive things done. And they can always come into the office for meetings and so on and so forth, but they're going to be spending that much more time being productive as opposed to commuting to and from the office. So there are some real tangible potential benefits to it. It just needs to be a conversation had with every, in every situation is going to have its own bespoke solution.
Yeah. All right. Well, Doug Endersbee and Ray Sidney-Smith, thank you for your time and your valuable input today. We will, at the end of the show, we will be asking people to send you their questions and so on. Doug Endersbee, how do people get in touch with Oz Hosting?
Well, if they go to our website, ozhosting.com.au, there's always various ways to contact us. There can even be a little chat box that will pop up, and people are very good at putting questions in there to get a quick answer on things that might be troubling them, but obviously they can also jump on the phone and have a chat to myself or any of the team across our sales and support areas at any time.
And Ray Sidney-Smith, if somebody has questions for you, how do they contact you?
They can usually just Google my name. If you type in Ray Sidney-Smith into the Google, you'll find me and the company pretty much very easily. So feel free to just Google me and you'll find me.
Terrific. Well, thank you again for your time today. This has been another coronavirus edition of Switched on IT. We've had Ray Sidney-Smith and Doug Endersbee with us, our usual hosts. Now, don't forget that if you missed any of the previous sessions, and we've done a couple now on coronavirus, but any of the Switched on IT sessions that have happened over the last year or so, you can pick up any of those on our video on demand. Just go down the left-hand side of this site and click on Switched on IT, and all of those sessions will come up. You can watch any of those. Please be sure, if you've got any questions, if you're working remotely, or if you're working from home, if you're not sure about how to do this, or you have issues with it or anything like that, please feel free. We'd love to hear from you. Our address here at PTV is feedback@ptvchannelo.com. You can email things, questions to me. I'll pass them on to Ray and Doug, and they can answer them for you. I think it's really important that in this current environment that we support each other. And PTV Channel O wants to be there for you. We want to help support you in your endeavours, and we want to help you to get the most out of this time, which is very difficult for everybody. So be sure to stay in touch with us. Send us through your questions, comments, anything that you would like, so that we can stay in touch with you. You can stay in touch with us, and we can help each other all through this difficult time. Make sure you maintain your social distancing, and don't forget that if you have health issues, if you have mental health issues, Lifeline is always there for you to be able to contact. Stay in touch with people, be kind to one another, and let's all get through this together. This has been Barry for Switched on IT. We'll see you again next week.